To go back to your statement, Ellie, about Indiana having an easy schedule the rest of the way. So they have the week off next week, which is good for them because they were dropping like flies in the second half. But then they play Michigan. They host Michigan State on October 16th, and then they host Ohio State the following week, and then they go to Maryland to finish the October slate. So, they're still entering the gauntlet of their schedule these next couple of games. But if they can get a split, I guess if they can somehow upset Sparty. I mean, I don't think they've beaten Ohio State, and Maryland, I guess you could say, is a toss-up for them. So, and then after Maryland, they got to play at Michigan. Michigan's probably getting their revenge too from last year. Then they host Rutgers, and then Minnesota, and then they finish on the road at their arch rival Purdue. So it's 2-3 right now. I mean, it's going to be a tough path to get to 6 wins in a bowl game, especially with Penix looking broken. And I mean, that's not to say Jack Tuttle wasn't capable, but it's different story when Penix is 100% and able to lead that team. And of course, if the injuries have been piling up, it's it's definitely good. They got a tough road ahead. They were nice. Indiana was a nice feel-good story in 2020, but they seem to be crashing back down to earth here in 2021. And elsewhere around the conference today, you had Michigan, destroying Wisconsin 38-17, and that, which I don't know about you. I mean, I guess I can see how maybe I've seen some people say, "Oh, that Wisconsin win wasn't so good now," but at the same time, I mean, that was for Penn State. That was a season opener on the road against a team with a stingy defense, and you got a new coordinator, offensive coordinator, and a quarterback who, last year especially was very shaky most of the season, and you had no idea what to expect. You were hoping for the best, thinking the worst. Frankly, I had him losing, but I don't think it really cheapens the win by any means. I mean, it was still impressive how they gritted that one out, especially with a new offensive system, working out the kinks in game one. So, and that's where we really saw, from the beginning, how special this defense was, with the way they held up on Wisconsin's last 2 drives. So yeah, Wisconsin's problems are really more offensively speaking as opposed to the defense. And, credit to Michigan. Wisconsin did slow down their run game. I mean, Michigan beat them through the air. Like, there was a criticism about Cade McNamara not having had to throw to beat teams. And today was the first day he had to do it. And he seemed to pass it with flying colors. And then Ohio State just delivered a woodshed beating to Rutgers. Rutgers was a mere 15-point underdog, 15.5 point underdog, which I guess caught the eye of degenerates like yourself, Ellie. I'm not a gambler, but
yeah.
But I don't know. Did you bet on that one at all? I'm curious.
Not real money.
Not real money.
I took them to cover on Black Shoe Degenerates, but I actually stayed away from that game because I think Vegas learned their lesson with making them a 3-touchdown underdog against Michigan, which they covered. Now, obviously, the game played out such that even a 3-touchdown spread would have Ohio State covered anyway. But it just seemed like too small a spread for me to put real money on. And this game kind of shows how much Rutgers still has left to go. They did great against Michigan, and who knows, maybe if they don't turn the ball over twice, they actually win it. But Ohio State is still the most talented team in the conference, and the Oregon loss lost a little bit of its luster, given Oregon's own loss today against Stanford. But Ohio State is still Ohio State, and until proven otherwise, they're going to win the Big Ten. Like, The only way I will say Ohio State's not winning the Big Ten is when they actually lose to a Big Ten team, which they hadn't done under Ryan Day. So Ohio State did what Ohio State does. I thought Rutgers was actually going to be able to exploit Ohio State's issues on defense, which they weren't really able to. I don't think this game and the Akron game are the proof that Ohio State has fixed this defense that maybe other people may want to see. We'll see what happens. Penn State, play them in basically a month. Um, they get a bye week in between there now and then, so we'll see what happens on Penn State's end too. Um, but yeah, I wanted to touch on on what you said about Wisconsin's win being cheapened because they're now 1-3. Yes, it was the opener, and I'm pretty sure that if other teams had to go to Wisconsin in their first game of the season with fans for the first time, they probably would have fared very similarly. And let's not forget that Graham Mertz, which actually was starting to look better in this game, went down in the fourth quarter, and that's when the dam basically broke for Wisconsin. Um, and this game was kind of a repeat of the Notre Dame game without the pick sixes. And what I mean by that is the game was actually still within striking distance in the fourth quarter. And then a series of unfortunate events led to, I think it was something like 13-10. And suddenly it was 30-10. And then after that, there was garbage time score from Jim Harbaugh, who, as I mentioned earlier today, maybe has a little bit of Franklin in him, or maybe Franklin has a little bit of Harbaugh in him. Anyway, Harbaugh will never pass up an opportunity to run up the score on people when he can. And he did that. And then Wisconsin piled on another score at the end, but it basically the Badgers have been right there in all three games that they've lost. Penn State's was the only game where the dam didn't break for them and they actually had a chance. So I'm not completely out on Wisconsin. And you know what? I think the idea that a team has to look like Alabama game in and game out in order to be good, it's kind of nonsense. And also, a team can be good without having all of its opponents also be great. Like we see this all the time. Clemson has won 2 national championships on the backs of an ACC conference that had nothing behind Clemson. That did not mean Clemson was not one of, if not the, based on the results, best teams in the country the years that they won the national championship, right? So sure, Wisconsin is 1-3, and Texas A&M is 2-2, and Arkansas just scored 0 points against Georgia, and Florida, the Alabama's probably best win today, just lost to Kentucky, and they're 2-2. So at some point, you got to just look at the teams who are good and go on their actual merits instead of trying to take away from what they have done because the other teams on the schedule maybe are not producing. Oh, and as a side note, Ball State beat Army, which was undefeated. So, maybe Ball State is going to bolster Penn State's SOS down the stretch.
Hey, we could use every bit of that SOS stretching at this point. But yeah, as one of our reader Larry, commenter Larry mentioned, Mertz and Ferguson went down in the early third quarter. I was going to say, I remember Mertz taking a nasty hit beginning of the third quarter, and that really, at that point, it felt like the game was essentially over because it seemed before that Mertz was actually getting into a rhythm, like, passing wise, like he finally figured it out, and then he goes down, and it was just clear why, seeing Chase Wolf play the backup, it was pretty clear why Mertz wasn't being benched before when struggling so badly. So yeah, they really, their quarterback situation is not good. I guess I didn't see it, but I guess their tight end Jake Ferguson also went down. He's like their main top receiving target. So that wasn't good. And yeah, Ohio State, I guess as far as their, it seems like, I mean, of course, part of it is, Rutgers maybe being put in their place, after being hyped up so much. Again, kudos to Schiano. He's at least got those kids scrapping and actually, playing with some pride. But certainly this game just showed how wide the talent gap is between them and the upper crust of the Big Ten East. And looks like maybe, I mean, not that Ohio State had real problems offensively, but CJ Stroud kind of looking like Justin Fields out there slinging the rock, and then I think most importantly, the emergence of Travion Henderson as their running threats. I mean, this Ohio State offense, look like they might be figuring out. I mean, frankly, by the time Penn State goes visiting Columbus at the end of the month, they could be a well-oiled offensive machine again. So could one of those games where you want it could be a bit of a shootout potentially. Who knows? But Ohio State certainly, after that Oregon loss and looking a little rusty in the game or two after that, they see this was like a right the ship kind of game for them, very much so. So it seemed like they did that. And then another score caught my eye: Nebraska 56, Northwestern 7. Yeah, so that suddenly that Michigan at Nebraska game looks like it might be a bit more interesting next weekend. I'm in a Big Ten survivor pool with a friend, and just similar to NFL survivor, except with Big Ten teams. And so I was strongly leaning towards picking Michigan next week over Nebraska, and I'm probably still going to do it, but that score gives me a little bit of pause. Now maybe Northwestern is bad, but my impression was they at least had their defense was okay, but I don't know, maybe not. But still, for Nebraska to put up 56 points like that, I mean, I don't care who it is. I mean, it's
a lot of points.
They weren't looking that competent offensively at the beginning of the season, so maybe they've turned it around a bit there.
Yeah, Nebraska had been basically knocking on the door for the past 3 weeks now. So I'm actually not surprised to see this, and I think when I wrote on the Black Shoe Degenerates post preview, I basically said something to the effect, right, that Nebraska's actually not that bad. They've just had the misfortune of really bad special teams play, and it's cost them dearly. It cost them against Illinois. They basically would have won the game if they could make a field goal against Oklahoma. And same thing with Michigan State, right? So like they've basically been gifting games away so far this season, and you saw that when they weren't giving the game away against a team that was clearly below them. That sounds bad, but it's the truth, right? They're suddenly not in close game situations, or in the losing end of a game. So yeah, I'm definitely interested to see what happens with Michigan and Nebraska next week. I will say after the Wisconsin game, I am ready to accept that Michigan is a good team this season. I don't know how good. Michigan has, like Maryland, Michigan has done this in the past, where they look good in the first part of the season, and then as the season goes on, as the Ohio State game creeps in, they fall apart. So we'll see what happens with Michigan. Um, and I think the other game we haven't discussed is Michigan State. Um, I think everyone knew that Western Kentucky was going to score, and they did. But Michigan State's also looking well. But I think the thing that gives me pause with Michigan State so far is that their offense has looked really great against teams with suspect defenses. Northwestern, Miami, Western Kentucky. But the one team that actually has an effective defense, and Nebraska has already proven this beyond the shadow of a doubt, they held Oklahoma to its lowest point total until the next week when West Virginia held them to a lower point. But still, that powerful offense, Nebraska held them. Michigan State themselves have been scoring, and I think they were averaging like 37 points a game before the Nebraska game. They held them to 20 in regulation. We just saw Nebraska hold Northwestern to 7. So I'm curious to see what Michigan State does moving forward as the defenses they face start getting better and better, because they've done really well against suspect defenses, as any team that claims to be good should. So that's not a knock on them. I'm just curious to see how things progress moving forward. And that's why I actually count Michigan State in one of those games Indiana could actually do well in, especially because they're going to the bye. Some of those players are going to heal up. And obviously one game does not prove a trend, but in the one game where the defenses weren't in the bottom half of college football in terms of total defense, they did look mortal.
Certainly. Yeah, Michigan State's a team that intrigues me. Yeah, like you said, they offenses looked obviously much better than I anticipated they would this year. I guess defensively, I guess they they were a little suspect at times, but again, they're certainly not terrible in that regards. But like I said, that offense has mostly been lighting up bad defenses. When they went up against a defense like Nebraska's last week, I do think Nebraska, for all the kinks they're working out offensively, defensively, they've been a pretty solid been pretty good most for the year. So it'll be interesting to see, like when they start facing, like Michigan, they start, or at the end of this month, or when they host Penn State, on Thanksgiving weekend, how that offense is going to look against those teams. And I do have a reader comment here. Shout out to Will Levis. Yes, our guy Will Levis, his Kentucky Wildcats got a big upset win over Florida earlier tonight. They are actually still undefeated, 5-0. They ought to be ranked come tomorrow, because Florida was ranked in the top 10.
Number 10.
They were number 10 going to this game. Listen, Shelton, now the best game, 7-17, 87 yards, touchdown, interception. But it's a team win.